welcome to this very special Behind the Whites. We're not live, which means that if anything goes horribly wrong, we can sort it out and you won't even know about it. But anyway, we have been rejoined by Mr. Myles Smith. Myles, welcome back to Behind the Whites with me, Jim Bailey, of course, Peter Johnson alongside. No Chris Hyder this time.
Hospital Cup action, isn't
Hospital
it?
Cup, yeah, getting stuck into a bit of local football is Chris Hyder. So do tune in to Saturday Sport for all of that, because he'll be keeping everybody updated of how those games have gone on. But on to the topic of Wanderers women. Got my shirts on. Very nice.
Just for the occasion.
Got the shirt up here, because that one was never going to fit on me. I might have lost a bit of weight, but an extra small I am not. But thanks for rejoining us, Myles. It has been a little while, and of course there's been plenty going on with Wanderers women. A lot of points on the board, a lot of wins. Almost 100% run thus far. The one draw that kind of, I don't know, spoils that 100% record, but still, as it stands, unbeaten in the league all season. When you started off at the beginning of this journey, at the beginning of this season, I assume you were confident that we were going to do well. You felt that the team could go on, and you told us last time how you thought it was a really good set of players that you put together, and you were very confident going into that league season. Did you think it would be this good? To be at this point unbeaten in the league and in a cup final?
I don't think anybody can really hope for that, to be honest. You ask any manager around the world, and if you say you played 19 games, you've won 18 and drawn 1, anybody would take that, right?
Absolutely.
But no, when I first stepped into the project, to be honest, I didn't know what to expect. It was it's a little bit new for me, dropping and working at this level. But the players that we brought in and the players that we had already there, they've been superb. And look, we're right at the business end now, and 3 to go, and hopefully we can finish it off.
Yeah, that's it. 3 to go, and as part of one of those 3, of course, Accrington Stanley, a big game there, because they are still, despite the fact that you've only dropped 2 points all season, Aki are well on your tails.
Yeah, massive credit to them. They're keeping us going right until the last couple of games. And look, we have 3 games now, starting with Penrith on Sunday away, which is the only team to take points off us. We drew to them a couple of weeks, 3 weeks ago. And then after that, we have obviously the cup final in the middle of things, and then we play Accrington at home. So, those 2 games are important for us, and if we manage to get the result our way, then that's the league done. But obviously that's a big if at the moment.
And we were talking just before, weren't we? Obviously, you've got a league and cup running simultaneously throughout the season, but such is the quality that you and Accrington have both shown. You've really got 2 finals with them, haven't you? Because the league, with you only having drawn 1 game all season, they've only lost 1 game all season. There's only 1 point in it, so you've really got a straight shootout in both league and cup next week, haven't you? Which is a ridiculous situation to be in.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, obviously we play them in the cup final on Thursday, and then, like you said, it could potentially be a league decider on the Sunday. Don't get me wrong, they have a few games in hand and a few tough games. They've had a lot of fixture congestion recently, and I think that's certainly taken its toll when I see the performances and things like that. But look, we have to just try and control inside our 4 walls, and we have to just win our games, and no matter how they're presented to us, that's what we have to deal with, and that's what we're going to try and do these next 3 or 4 games to go. Yeah.
And with those 2 games against Accrington, coming back to back, as it were, we were saying a little bit before, it gives you the opportunity maybe to scope each other out a little bit. It's not really worked out particularly favourably, has it, I suppose, in some respects, that you do play them twice in such a short amount of time?
I mean, yeah, look, it depends how you look at it. Obviously, you play them in the final and in the cup final, and you have a chance to have a look at each other and what teams maybe put out, whether they're going to go full strength, whether we go full strength. Obviously, both teams, I'm assuming, want to win the cup. We certainly do. So I'm assuming they will as well. But look, and then obviously you play them just a few days after. I think for me the turnaround time is something to take into account as well. We play Thursday night and then you play again on Sunday. So that turnaround time of readiness and freshness for the players isn't ideal. But as we said, we have to play what's been afforded to us, and we'll do our absolute best to try and make this town proud.
It could have been one of those that was like, had you not been playing Accrington in the final, it could be seen as actually this final has really come at the wrong time for us. But with it being against Accrington, it is actually the same for both teams. You've both got that Thursday, Sunday fixture to deal with, and I don't know, I think it kind of makes it interesting in that way, because not only are you going to, some players probably going to have to deal with a bit of fatigue from that Thursday night game, but they're going out there against a lot of the same players. There might be a bit of chopping and changing, but generally you'd imagine the core will probably be about the same for both teams, both games. There might be one of those if you've got if one team has maybe not done so well in the final, it could be a really big motivator for that game that could potentially decide the league.
Yeah, I think so. And look, we're lucky in the sense of we've got some great squad depth in our group. We've got 27 players across the group, and we've got some players that are banging on the door every single week. So we're fortunate in the sense of that if we did need to rotate or there were to be any injuries or niggles after the cup final, then we're more than confident of players that can step in. So we're lucky in that sense. I think Aki don't have that luxury as much. I don't think they have as much depth, and as I said, it's one of those. It's when you get to a cup final, of course you want to win it, and then the league, obviously, that's been our priority all season. So we've said that right from the start, that the league's been the priority, but obviously, look, if we could bring 2 trophies to this club, then that's exactly what we want to do, of course.
I mean, what a great start it'd be, a double in your first season. You can't go wrong with that, can you?
I mean, you brought up an interesting point there about players, obviously depth in the squad and depth in quality, and it was something I really wanted to ask you about. The men's team, obviously, on Saturday picked up their first red card of the season. You picked up a red card yourselves, which is not something that you've really had to deal with, and it caused a bit of a stir, didn't it? I just wondered what your thoughts were on the whole incident, because I think Morecambe were from what Chris Hyde tells me, were a little bit embarrassed really that it ended up being a red card, because it quite clearly wasn't.
Well, listen, Jess has she's shown a little bit of frustration in the game, and she's reacted in a way and let her frustration come into the game and probably made a bit of a bad decision there, but as I said, she's a young player that's still learning. This is part of her journey, and I'm sure she'll go on and do some great things in her career. Hopefully with Bolton or with other clubs. She's on loan at the moment, as you know, from Everton. But this is part of the learning for Jess, and we spoke about it after. But that's the consequence of that now, is that we don't have Jess for the next 3 games. So she'll be out of Penrith this Sunday, and then obviously the cup final, and then the league game against Accrington as well. So. Look, as I said, it's
big player as well, though.
I mean, yeah.
Yes, to lose her for those games must be a blow.
Yeah, definitely. Look, she's our second top goal scorer at the moment. She's been the top goal scorer all season, and Faye's just taken over her. But yeah, she's a huge player for us. There's no getting around that. But at the same time, we're extremely confident in some of the players that we've got. You've got Grace, you've got Maddie, you've got Miller. You've got a lot of players in that group that are ready to come and step in and do what they need to do. I think. You look at last time we played some difficult games, Christmas when we played Aki, we didn't have Jess again in that game.
Yeah, that's true.
She was playing for Everton's first team against Liverpool, so we didn't have Jess for that period of time, and Maddie came in, and Maddie was absolutely superb, and she's kept her place in and around the first team ever since. So, like I said, we're confident in the players that we've got, and it's certainly not just one player that carries this team.
And with that kind of, I suppose it's a bit of an interesting situation, because it's not what you'd expect from watching the men's game. For Wanderers fans, is that you've got that dual registration element to it. How does that work in terms of when she gets suspended? Is it like you are suspended for a period of time for both teams, or is it just for the team you got sent off for?
So it'll just be for us, yeah.
Right.
It's just for us, yeah. So as I said, she's got a 3-match ban now for 3 Bolton games, and any Everton games that are in the calendar, she's able to play because it's classed as they're an academy and a development sort of league.
Yeah.
She's able to play in those games. So just the Bolton games, yeah. We did look at that. We did see any Everton games. Good.
Get them out of the way. Get them out of the way.
Yeah, we did have a look at that, but no, as I said, it's just our games. Yeah.
Well, worth that look though, isn't it?
Of course.
But in terms of the bigger picture, then, obviously taking one game at a time and all that kind of motto, you are. Really, though, as I say, in the grand scheme of things, only 2 wins away from promotion, and Penrith, obviously, the only side who've taken points from you. Accrington, the only side who could catch you, just happens to be the next 2 fixtures. Is that a good thing? Because it couldn't have really been a tougher couple of games, really, could it? But it means that you can't really drop your guard at this stage of the season.
Yeah, I mean, it depends how you look at it. You always have to play every team twice at some point. We played Accrington around Christmas, and Christmas is a time where people often start to think about Christmas and having some time off in the women's game. You don't get it in the men's, but in the women's game you get a week or so. We did okay against them then. But look, like you said, we just have to take one game at a time. We've honestly been doing that all season. Right at the start of the year, we were 20 games off winning to win this league, and now we're only 2, possibly 3. So we've taken one game at a time all season, and the team have been absolutely superb in that. And obviously at this back end of the season now, it's about getting yourself switched on, getting focused, and not letting any complacency kick in, because that could be the difference between a draw, a win, or a lose at this stage in the season. And we'll do everything we can out there, and the players are focused. We've had a really good week this week. We've had a really good couple of games against Morecambe, against Haslington. There's a good togetherness in the group at the moment, and the team know what they need to do, and I'm sure they'll give everything for that badge to make sure they try and do it.
I suppose it's a big thing as well. You mentioned that complacency, because any team that's up at the top of the table and has been looking good, for the season really, in the cup final as well, could quite easily become complacent. If you look back over some of the results you've had this season, you wouldn't blame the odd player for looking out and thinking, well, we've got this stored up. Look at all them 6-0, 5-0, 7-0, whatever we've got going on. I think there was 11 in there at some point.
Blackpool, recently. Yeah.
You can see how complacency could become an issue. Has it been very easy to kind of keep them all on focus, or has it been something where you've had to really think, right, come on, we need to keep this focus going now?
I think like any group I've worked with, to be honest, at any level of the game, whether it's been the highest of women's or this level of women's or in the Premier League, you get to this stage of the season and people start to feel it. It's a long season. We've been grafted now for 39 weeks, I think it is. So 39 weeks worth of work, and you're in pretty much 5 days a week, 6 days a week for 39 weeks. When you go home, you still can't quite switch off because you're thinking about the game tomorrow, or you've got the adrenaline still pumping the day after the game and all those types of things. So 39 weeks on any individual, no matter if you're one of the best athletes in the world or whether you're playing recreationally, whatever it may be, it takes its toll.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
It takes its toll, and I think that these players have been superb because a lot of what we've done this year is brand new to them. The volume of what we train, what we've implemented in the programme this year, the gym stuff, the analysis stuff, the recovery stuff, it's all either mental or physical load for them, and it's gone from sort of this load to this load overnight, really. But they've been superb, and as I said, they're fully focused now on trying to get these next 2 or 3 games done, because we can assure you that if we do end up winning these next 2 and the result goes our way, we obviously certainly want to win the last one in the home stadium, so we won't be putting our feet up after that. We want to win every game that we possibly can for this football club, because that's what this football club is expected. That's what's expected when you work, and when you're part of this club, you're expected to win football matches.
Joel, let's move on then, as you brought it up. So that final game of the season against Preston, is that something that's been in the diary, kind of in the back of the club's mind for a long time, or is that just something that's been born out of the success of the women's team throughout the course of the season? It's suddenly clocked, that'd be a great idea, or is it something that's been a long time in the planning?
Telling the secrets now, aren't I?
Yeah, that's it. Digging in.
No, to be honest, the very first day that I met the board and the club, it was one thing that we discussed. One thing that we discussed is that we need to try and get a stadium game here for the women. I said it last time I was on the show, the ambition that the club has for this women's team is massive, and hopefully over the years you're going to see a lot more great things happening, whether it's with me or without me. Football's a funny game, but for this women's team and the Bolton Wanderers women, hopefully you see some amazing stuff happening over the years. And this stadium game it's been in the planning and organisation for a long time. We wanted to try and find when the best fit was for that, both for the group to make sure that they stay focused and concentrated, but also for the fans and for the club as a whole. And look, we decided to go with this Preston one last game of the season, and it's great. It's a little bit of history for this women's team. It's the first time the women's would have played at the stadium, and we're hoping that there'll be many more over the years, as well as many other opportunities for this team. And again, the club have just been so supportive. Not only the people at the top, Sharon and Phil, and the CEOs and Niaz as well, but the people that have worked so hard to get this stadium game on, because I think some people think it's easy, it's just to go, okay, so let's play at the stadium. There's so much work that has to go into it, from everybody in hospitality, the comms team, the stewarding, the security, the logistics team. There's so much that has to go into it. It takes a lot of planning to open those doors to that stadium. So a massive thank you has to go to everybody.
Yeah, I mean, it is a huge thing, but a huge undertaking. But what is very exciting about it is that that first game in the stadium for the women's team could be the game where they're lifting the league title, which just seems to fit. It'd just be so good if they could lift that league title inside the Tough Sheet.
I mean, yeah, it would be a special day. It really would. It would be a special day for everybody. And look, the players, they deserve their moment, because, as I said, they've worked so hard this season for such a long time now that it'd be great to finish in that way. And look, as I said, what better way to finish playing at your home stadium in your home kit with that badge on your chest, wearing it proud in a 28,000 seater stadium. Try and get it as full as we can. I think I think the record in this league is around 3,600 set by Brentford at the G-Tech. I think they've done that this season. So we want to get as many people there as we can. Tickets are selling really nicely for us, and hopefully everybody can witness a slice of history for this football club.
Yeah, and how much are the tickets for that last game of the season?
So £3, £3 for adults. Yeah, and then I think free for under 18s. Yeah.
So there you go. If you're watching this and you're thinking, oh, I've quite fancy a little bit of that. £3. Your kids can go for free. Get on down and hopefully watch us lift the league championship, which would be absolutely fantastic. It's such a good bunch of players, and not just in terms of the results you've been having, but when we came, myself and producer Mark, who's over there behind the camera, we headed down to the game when you played at Charlie against Preston in the semi-final. And what I was struck by was it was the atmosphere, and it wasn't just the atmosphere around the players, it was the atmosphere around everybody, like from the players to the normal supporters, to the player, to the coaches and yourself and all of that side of it. But also you could kind of tell in the crowd, you could see who's kind of connected to some of the players' families were there, but it was all just one kind of big happy family group, and everybody seemed to be just having such a good time. And it's such a good atmosphere around the team and around women's football in general, actually, because I've been to other women's football games, and it always does seem to be just a little bit more of a family atmosphere and somewhere for the kids to go. And I'd never say don't take your kids to any football match, but there's less of that, say, industrial language and the things that you associate with going to the football at the women's game. It does seem to be very much more a family-friendly event.
Yeah, definitely. And look, it's women's football in general, as you said, it's extremely family-friendly, and the supporters need credit for that. This town and the supporters of this football club need credit, because when it was announced that this women's team was brought into main club operations, the fan base and the support was unbelievable right from the start. Whether it's people that have been coming to watch the games, and listen, I don't know the exact number, but I think we've been averaging over 500 for our home games, which is incredible. There's a lot of tier 2 teams that aren't getting that in the women's pyramid, and whether it's been the fans that have been attending games or whether it's been those that have been just sort of online and giving support from afar. The fan base and the support for this women's team has certainly not gone unrecognised. It's been unbelievable, and the players feel that, and that's what helps to create the nice atmosphere. The players can feel it, they can see it, and it helps give us that push. I know it's an old cliche saying, but it really does.
Yeah, I can well believe it does, and you could kind of feel that in that game against Preston, because quite a tight, tough encounter, and it was fairly late on that Wanderers finally did break the deadlock. You did tend to feel that if the deadlock was going to be broken before it got to that penalty shootout, it was going to be Wanderers that got it. We were on top for the majority of the game, but a very organised defensive team in Preston. Worked really hard, had some very good moments in defence, and even managed a couple of counter attacks. Maybe looked a couple of times like they might worry us, but when it came to it, that focus and the concentration and the work ethic from Wanderers was there all the way through to that final whistle. You could see what it meant to them when that final whistle went to get to that cup final, but it must help, to be in that atmosphere and to be in a place where you're happy. You're always going to perform better, surely. Yeah,
definitely. And look, it meant a lot to all of us. I think I had to stop myself from doing a Jose down the touchline.
Oh, we would have loved that.
I lost myself a little bit. I got about 3 or 4 steps in, and I remembered where I was and walked back to my seat a little bit embarrassed, but no, it meant a lot to everybody. I mean, it was a moment of brilliance from Faye. Again, she's been an outstanding player for us, but again, credit must go to the players. It's difficult when a team puts 10, 11 players behind the ball, and there's no extra time. It goes straight to penalties, and they're clearly playing for one thing, and penalties can obviously go in a lot of different ways. So we asked the players just to continue to do what we was asking of them, what we've done all season, to trust the process, to trust how we play, and not to sort of play their own individual game and get frustrated and get nervous as the time ticked on. And they did that, and I don't know the exact time, but 70 odd minutes or so, that first goal broke. And again, credit must go to the players for sticking on task rather than just sort of getting worried and starting to do their own thing. And like you said, once that first goal came in, then it was only going to go one way, really.
Yeah, I believe that. And I think, for me watching it, I was starting to get a little bit nervous. I was starting to get a little bit jittery, like, time's ticking on here.
Yeah.
We don't, penalties is such a lottery, you don't want to take that gamble. But the girls really kept their heads, and there didn't seem to be any panic, any worry, no real anxiety about it. It was just a matter of they just kept believing that if we keep doing what we're doing, we will get our reward, and we did.
Yeah, and again, it shows massive credit to the group, because this group's, they're unbelievable. We've got a young average squad. Average age is extremely young, but the experience that they've got and the mindsets that they have is unbelievable. It's superb, and I think it shows that we all trust one another. You know, as a group, you have to be able to have trust in the players. They have to trust you, and that game's a prime example of that, because you see a lot of the times where, like you said, you're trying to break down a brick wall of 10 players behind the ball, and you get to 70, 80 minutes and you start to worry, and players start to go off task a little bit, but the girls just absolutely stayed on what we wanted to do, and it got the breakthrough. It certainly helps them put their trust in us for the next game as well, which is always good. Which is always good. But no, it was a great moment, and hopefully we can do the rest of it now and get that cup final won.
Yeah, hopefully so.
Yeah. I'm not much more to add on that.
No,
That wasn't at the game, so you summed it up very nicely for me.
I suppose
I will be at the.
Oh, absolutely.
The ones that you can't miss, though, aren't there?
No,
you talk about being so well supported already, but I mean the support at Leyland next week already promises to be phenomenal,
Yeah,
and then at the tough sheet as well.
To be there for that first, cup final, regardless of the result, it's a momentous occasion for.
What do you think with this group of players? Obviously, we don't want to look too far in the future, but doing very well in this league. They're clearly not a group of players that belong at this level, are they? Clearly, long term. What do you think whether they're with or without Bolton? If you look at if they're with or move elsewhere away from Bolton, if you look at Jeff can't say it now. Jess Fishlock or Faye Knox. Sort of, what level do you think they're really at then? Because clearly this isn't the level they're going to spend their careers at, is it? It's kind of, when you look at the pyramid, where should they aspire to be? Do you think?
I think obviously it depends on every individual. Like you said, we've got a lot of players that are able to kick on and play. You spoke about Faye just there. She's a player that could play WSL. If she gets the bits right that she needs to get right, then she could be a WSL player. I've got no doubt about that. And there's a few more in there that could get to that level, or at least get to that women's championship level or full-time contracts in football. Now, hopefully that is with Bolton as we grow.
That would be great.
That would be great, of course. But I think also every individual is different, and everybody at the moment they're still so young, and it's almost like having that crystal ball. You don't quite know. You have a good estimate, and you have a guess, and you have a bit of a wonder. But oftentimes players surprises you. I've worked with so many players in the past at academy level whereby it's always the ones who you don't think are going to come through. Declan's a great example of that. Declan Rice back in the men's game. All the money wasn't really on Declan, it was on a few other players in the academy at the time, and he sort of stayed quiet and kept doing what he needed to do, and obviously now look at him.
He's doing alright for himself.
He's not doing bad, yeah. So players surprise you all the time. They surprise you all the time. But look, as long as the players are with us, then we will do everything we can to, first of all, win games for this football club and get as close as we can to the higher levels, but also make sure that we look after the players, and we have a duty of care to make sure that we continue to develop the players, especially some of the young ones that are in the group, and kick them on to get to the highest level they can play at.
Absolutely, but no, it's brilliant to see not just the progress of women's football, but the fact that Wanderers are really getting in it, because there was Bolton women beforehand, but it wasn't. There was a kind of a trial of an affiliation that didn't really happen, or COVID came along, which really didn't help matters there. Yeah. But for a long time, as women's football's getting more and more popular, it has been a thing for a lot of Wanderers fans thinking, well, why are Bolton not getting on it? And obviously, with everything that was going on at the club in general for quite a long time, you can see why it wasn't a priority to be like, well, we need to start looking at this, because it was more like, well, the club's about to go out of business, which we need to be prioritised over here. But then, of course, it got done. Football Venture Sharing came in. The club was saved, built on. We've moved on, and now there is that ability to say, right, no, let's get the women's team properly into the fold. Let's get it expanded, and let's get behind it and make it happen. It's a shame that it wasn't done a few years ago, but I completely understand why it couldn't be done at that time.
Well, I think appreciation and a massive thanks has to go to Bolton Wanderers in the community for that, because they're the ones
that... great organisation.
Unbelievable.
Fantastic.
Some of the stuff they do is incredible, and Ben, who heads that up, and I work closely with Ben, and some of the stuff they do on a daily basis, a weekly basis, is incredible. But one thing they've done over the years is hold this women's team and carry it. And I've said it before, these players that I have right now, the majority of them they played for Bolton last season. They've come through the ranks of what was sat in Bolton Wanderers in the community, and it's one of the reasons we've got I don't want to use the word success yet, but one of the reasons why we're doing quite well at the
Yeah.
moment is because the community, what they've done over the years for this women's team has been unbelievable. And they continue to do unbelievable work for the women's team in terms of everything that is below the first team, the sense of the reserves team and the under 18s and the younger age groups still sits in the community. And there's some real good players in there and some coaches doing some really good things. So the community deserve massive credit, not just for this year, but for all the years that have passed since I've been here, for the work they've done, because it's certainly carried this women's team up until recent times.
Absolutely. One thing I did want to ask, and I don't know, you might not know, but of course that game against Preston was played down at Victory Park in Chorley. It's not your normal home ground. You would normally be over at the Dreams to Reality stadium in Allerton. Do you think you'll be venturing around a little bit more? Do you think you'll be stay at the Dreams to Reality stadium, or do you think there's more games at Victory Park? I'm not just asking because I'm biased. It's closer to my house. Might be.
Well, no, look, at the moment, we're extremely happy. Atherton Collieries have been superb to us.
Again, another great club, do fantastic bits for the local footballing scene as well, and of course we're going to have the Remembrance Group game there as well later on in the year, and they've always been very open and again a great club, but they're very welcoming to Wanderers women.
They've looked after us extremely well. Paul and his group there and his team have been superb to us the very first day we met and wanted to do this, and they couldn't have done more for us. I think the reasons behind us playing the odd fixture, whether it was at Lostock or at Chorley's ground, was we were simply trying to. There was a point, obviously, in winter where pitches struggled, especially this side of the country, and we've tried to help sort of regenerate the pitch, if you like, for some of the tougher games that we've got coming up, i.e. now.
Yeah.
And that pitch is it has 2 games on it every fortnight or however you look at it. But that was the reason for sort of hopping around a little bit during that sort of winter spell, that Christmas spell. But as I said, we're extremely happy at Atherton Collieries, and they've been superb to us.
Fantastic, good stuff. And so that's where you'll be next season for the majority, obviously. Weather pending.
Weather pending, yeah, of course, yeah. No, at the minute, look, conversations have to go on. I've not spoke to Paul regarding next season yet, but as I said, this season is to be honest, I'm thinking about Sunday more than rather than the.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that's probably the best way of going about it.
But no, as we get, we got this season and we'll play in our last home game there, and we go from there.
Yeah, you don't want to.
I think the most pleasing thing for us this year was we've obviously got a lot of new faces this year. 500 plus average attendance, but we've managed to retain the people that have been coming. I think one of the very first games, we somebody told me you've got 560 here or whatever the number was, and absolutely buzzing with that. But I was thinking, let's see how many come back the following week, and they did, and they've now been coming for 38 weeks. So that's the most pleasing thing. And as I said before, the support this year has been unbelievable. And for those that haven't been down to see it, I think they'll be pleasantly surprised at some of the football that gets played and the levels, and like you said, some of the things that you see. Even a red card here or there, which obviously is quite exciting for some people. But I think you just have to be open-minded about it. For someone that's never looked at women's football or never give it an opportunity. I worked in the men's game before, and I spent 3 years in there, and in the Premier League, and I didn't even think about women's football at that time. This was sort of 8, 9, 10 years ago now. But then, sort of as I stepped into it, I've not looked back since. So it just takes that open-minded person really to come along, give it an opportunity. And if you're a Bolton fan, then we'd love to see you there. That's for sure. Absolutely.
And if you do struggle to get across to Allerton or whatever, then there is a big game coming up at the Tough Sheet, so you can get yourself onto that one. And of course, next week, get yourself down to Leyland for the Lancashire FA and watch yourself a cup final, and hopefully we'll be winning a couple of pots as well, which will be very, very exciting. Myles, I think we've taken up quite enough of your time. Thank you so much for coming down and joining us again.
No, thank you.
You know what? I'm not going. I was going to look for a cheeky prediction, but I don't think you should probably ask the manager for it.
Please don't.
Just pass it over.
There's rules against that.
No, there probably is, isn't there? It's not like asking Derek on a Saturday, is it? But there you go. But no, Myles, thank you very much for joining us. Bolton women, as we say, in that Lancashire Challenge Cup final, and just get yourself on Skiddle or Eventbrite. I'm looking at you and you don't know, do you? It's Skiddle or Eventbrite. Get yourself on Eventbrite, just search for Bolton Wanderers Women or for the Lancashire FA Challenge Cup final, and get yourself on there. It's not too dear, is it? £8. There you go, £8 for a cup final. That is an absolute bargain. And if you're really lucky, you might even see us down there. So there you go. Thank you once again for coming in. It's always a pleasure to speak to you, and hopefully we'll be able to speak to you in a few weeks' time. And reflecting on a successful season with a couple of trophies.
Yeah, hopefully. No, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me again.
Fantastic. Cheers.
Thanks, Myles.